What's up, guys? Welcome back to the shop. So on this quick tech tip episode, we're going to go ahead and show you how to install hose ends on your PTFE line. Over here on the Chevelle, the old fuel line was a rubber style push lock, and if you can see, it's starting to crack really bad. So that scares me. I want to stay away from any of those. I also want to get a fuel line that's going to be friendly to E85 and anything like that. So PTFE seems to be the way to go. Okay, PTFE hose is going to be a little bit different than your standard steel braided line because it does have a hard Teflon inner right there, and the fitting, you know, looks the same from the outside, but it has one extra piece, so it's got a ferrule in there, and that's what wedges this all together. When it's all tightened down, and makes a nice leak seal. Nice, it makes a nice leak-proof seal. So let's go ahead and figure out what length we need. And you know, my instance is going to be pretty simple because I already have hoses made up. I just want to mimic them or copy them. But if you don't have your hoses made up, it's really simple because you can just take this line apart and insert that into the hose like so. Figure out exactly where you need it to go. You know, you can route it, run it, and that's actually in there fairly decent, so you can get a little Western with it, not too crazy. But once we got the length figured out, what we're going to go ahead and do is get a little bit of masking tape, just like any other steel braided line. We'll go ahead and wrap some masking tape around the area. Pull it nice and tight where we want to cut this. Go ahead and check our length one last time. Alright. Take a Sharpie, pencil, marker, something. Mark on the tape where we want to cut it. Let's head over to the bench. Over here at the vise, we've got our tape marked. I do have a set of soft jaws in the vise, which I highly recommend. I 3D printed these. I'll have a link in the description below to a set of non 3D printed ones. Probably going to be a little better than the 3D printed ones because these things are kind of a little softer than I'd like. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of halfway clamp the hose in here so that it kind of holds it into place. There's multiple ways to cut this stuff. The one thing you do want to make sure is you get a nice clean square cut and a straight cut. So they do make a pair of shears, which is like a giant pair of bolt cutters or scissors that cut this. The only thing I don't like about that is it actually crushes the line down all the way. We can use the cutoff wheel on the grinder. I've also used the Portaband, which is the same thing I use for any of my steel braided lines, and I just think this just cuts a little easier. Get the line cut nice and clean. Now, this is a very crucial step here, is we're going to want to make sure we get these lines cleaned out all the way, because there's going to be, look at all the crap that's in there. So we're going to want to kind of go ahead and I'd say almost deburr it when we're using that method, and just make sure we get all the crap out of there. And then probably wouldn't hurt to run a little bit of brake clean or something through there just to make sure we get everything cleaned out of that fitting or that hose. We're just going to go ahead and flush the line out with some brake clean. Because the last thing we want, this is going to be fuel line, so the last thing we want is to have this contaminating our fuel line. So the next step is, once we have it cut, we're going to want to go ahead and push this nut over. Now, it's going to be a little tight to push over the top of there. I would highly recommend you do this while the tape is on. It's a lot easier to get started and push on without having this stuff fray and go all over hell. and just kind of give it some pushes and turns. Kind of screw it, almost screw it on, even though it's not threaded. You almost just push and turn it, and it just slides right on. A little bit of effort. There we go. Now that we have the nut on, we're going to go ahead and take our tape off. Alright. Next step is to take our ferrule, and that is going to go underneath the line, or the braided line, and go right on top of the Teflon. And this thing's going to get pushed on all the way until it bottoms out. Probably hard to see, but inside on that ferrule there's a little lip there, and what we're trying to do is push that Teflon all the way in till it bottoms out on that lip right inside there. So once the Teflon's seated tight against that lip, we're ready to go to the next step, which is to install the fitting. So the fitting just pushes right inside the Teflon hose and the ferrule. It doesn't hurt to put a little bit of lube on this to help this slide on, and then also to help these threads and keep them from galling. You can use whatever lubricant you got laying around. Since we're putting that motor together, I've got a little bit of assembly lube. I'm going to use that just to keep those threads nice and slick and keep them from galling. And this just pushes down, and once it's bottomed out against the ferrule, you're in good shape. Now it's time to slide this nut back on and get it hand started, which can be a little tricky, getting around some of those frays on that line. And then once we get it started, we're going to go ahead and clamp this in our soft jaws. We're going to clamp a hold of that nut on the fitting, and we're just going to tighten this thing down nice and easy. Tighten it into the fitting. We're going to want to tighten this down until it's snug. We don't want to go crazy tight with it, but get it nice and snug. They do make special AN aluminum wrenches that will keep from marring the fitting. If you're really concerned about the finish on the fitting, you can get those wrenches. There will be a link in the description below. However, if you're careful and you got a nice set of smooth adjustable wrenches, or even a regular socket or combination wrench, and you just take your time with it, you can usually do a pretty dang good job without having to spend the extra money on the AN wrenches. One more little rotation, I think it's there. And as always, I just like to, if I can help it, line up the flats. And this one actually ended up tightening down, being pretty much tight to the other lower hose. There is a little bit of a gap there, and you can see it did mar just a little bit on a couple of those edges, but for what we're doing, that's a good solid clean hose. Alright, I got 3 more of these to make up, so I better get to work. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment down below. Check out our Amazon links, and check out ftpspeedshop.com. Help support the channel, and if you like what we're doing, go ahead and give us a thumbs up, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching.